Hi everybody, welcome back to the This Is Me podcast. I'm Karen.
And I'm Ellie, and today we have Figen Murray joining us. Figen is the mother of Martyn Hett, who was one of the 22 people killed at the Manchester Arena attack in May 2017. As a result of this, Figen has worked tirelessly to become the initiator of Martyn's Law. Martyn's Law was designed to improve protective security and organisational preparedness in the face of potential terrorist attacks, particularly at publicly accessible locations. The legislation is to keep people safe when they're out and about. So, Figen, thank you so much for joining us. And to get started, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
First of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. It's really a pleasure. And well, it's been a weird kind of journey because I had absolutely nothing at all to do with security. I did know nothing about terrorism or security. It was not really my field at all. And I would like to also add, it wasn't even on my radar. I never even thought of security. Until the day my son was killed, and that was a big wake-up call. So I, until Martyn died, was a therapist. I was a life coach, and I was a clinical supervisor, supervising the work of other therapists so they work safely with clients. And I did that for over 23 years and was intending to do that for the rest of my life. In fact, we were about to move house. We'd sold the house the month Martyn died, so he knew we were going to move. We were downsizing, and I didn't want to work from home anymore because it was my intention to look for premises and not only carry on my job as a therapist, but also set up a centre for hoarding clients, because there's nothing in the city where I live and in Manchester. And that was my special interest group of clients. So I wanted to provide a service. Unfortunately, the day Martyn died was also my last working day in that profession.
Wow.
Okay.
What was your therapy? What was the profession what therapy did you work with?
So it was sort of a general therapy.
Yeah.
It was psychotherapy, counselling, that kind of working with all sorts of clients from all walks of life. I was also teaching at college at some point. So I was very, very involved in that
Oh, how
work.
amazing.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I was just really briefly, I was working towards my counselling qualification, and then obviously everything that happened with my mum, so that's been put on the back burner for the time being. But I think it's just a really incredibly important thing to have and profession to have, and we're lucky that it's becoming more acceptable to have and to do.
I agree. One of my daughters is actually now training to be a therapist, which I'm really pleased about. So hopefully in years she can set up that hoarding service.
Yeah.
She needs to come and talk to us. So,
but it's a really interesting job, and like you said, really worthwhile. And I had to take that difficult decision. I knew the day Martyn died, the day after, I realized that there's no way I can continue doing it, because it wouldn't have been ethically viable for me to continue, because whilst I could have continued working with clients with massive issues like, I don't know, childhood sexual abuse, rape, domestic violence, all of those big things, I wouldn't have any problem working with those clients. What I would have struggled with is working with people with very minor issues that I would have the same amount of empathy to before, in a very genuine way. But when Martyn died, instantly my worldview changed, and my sort of sense of what really matters in life changed in an instant, really. So I couldn't do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think, and I wonder whether, because you did the job that you did and had done it for as long as you did, whether there was maybe an expectation of, oh, well, Figen is better prepared for this situation, because you have the tools and the techniques and everything that you need to be able to pull yourself through. But I think when something particularly as significant as that happens, and we say it all the time, for different reasons, all of those things are great when you can do it. When you've spiraled past the point that you can't do it, it's so difficult to remind yourself that you do have tools and techniques that you are able to use. Did you find that?
Yeah, so nobody said, oh, thank goodness she's got the tools. Nobody thought that. However, I thought a lot about that over the years to come. So I was accused of not looking like a bereaved mother during the vigil. I was accused of, in a 10-minute video where I spoke about the terrorist and publicly forgave the terrorist, I was accused of, oh, this woman has no emotion and she's void of any empathy. And actually, although this person was told I'm a therapist and therefore that's why I can compartmentalize things, she still didn't think I had empathy or compassion. So that's the downside of being so
my goodness me,
in check so well. Obviously, training as a therapist has helped me cope with what happened in a better way. I'm not religious at all, but I keep thinking, well, the universe actually made me, I'm sure, train all those 3 decades ago, not to help others only, but to prepare me for what's to come in my life. I feel that everything in life is predetermined. From the moment we are conceived, our destiny has been written. And I suppose we can influence it if we are aware of it and we want to, but on the whole, I think I was as well prepared as I could have been, and I coped pretty well. Obviously, I cried a lot, but I knew also at what point I need to access therapy, what I need to interrupt therapy because I need to process what I've spoken about and then re-engage with therapy. So I knew because of my professional background.
That's really good.
Yeah, and I had lots of as well to cope, to self-regulate, if that makes sense.
No,
I think that's
sense.
I think it's really important as well, because I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't know is when is the time to, because you can't do it straight away. It would be, you don't know what day it is, let alone like going and trying to process it. But I think a lot of people don't realize when that moment is to go, okay, I'm in a place now and I've got to start dealing with this, and it's different for everyone. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I'm like, oh, you hypocrite, like, because
I was thinking listen to the pair of us.
I know, I thought, you absolute hypocrite. But I only say that because I went after my mum died, I went for a couple of counselling sessions, and then similarly thought, you're not ready for this, you can't do this just now, so abandoned ship, really.
But it's not the right time. It's a bit like now, Martyn. So now the legislation is done. I even went on national TV on BBC Breakfast and said, now the legislation is done, I'm now going to have deal with my grief. I'm going to go and have therapy. And I went to this therapist and I prepared myself. I said to her, I need you long term because I have not grieved. And actually on Monday, this coming Monday, is my last session because I don't need.
Oh, wow.
I realized, speaking to her, that actually I have been grieving all these years.
Yeah.
And I've used my grieving rather than sitting in a corner crying in a very proactive way and processed my grief through the work I've been doing, and I have actually engaged in therapy periodically in between those over the last 8 years. So I feel okay not to continue it after Monday.
Yeah. No, I think that's really awesome, because I think our journey over the last year, it's really interesting. My mum died. She died like 15 years ago, but Leslie dying was much more in our face. And people, like, what I've really learned is grief is different for everybody, but how you process grief doesn't have to be by crying or by withdrawing. Or I get up every day and I think I have a gift of being alive, that, and I'm not going to waste it. But other people's expectations of grief is like, oh, you're doing all right. You think, we don't know what's going on in this head.
Exactly.
I haven't got a clue what's going on.
What you see on the outside doesn't necessarily have to reflect what's on the inside.
Yeah. I think like that about that woman that said that about, first things first, what does a grieving mother look like then?
Yeah, exactly. It's because I didn't stand it was in the vigil in our local park, and we were under a canopy because it was sort of threatening to rain, and we were on a raised surface, and there were about 1,800 people there, and somebody literally said, she doesn't look like a bereaved mother, because I actually cracked a joke about Martyn, and that was not acceptable by the sound of it. But anybody who knew Martyn would totally get that I cracked a joke. He was hilarious.
Yes.
Hilarious.
Yeah. So and please feel free, you don't have to, but would you mind telling us a bit about Martyn? Because we know about all the work that you've done and with getting Martyn's Law.
What can I say? You only have to watch the Come Dine With Me couples episode with him in it to appreciate it. And then he was also on Tattoo Fixers, because in a drunken stupor, he and his friend one evening just had Ken and Deirdre tattooed on their ankle. So his mate was Ken and he was Deirdre, because he absolutely worshipped Deirdre. And it was just a handwritten word, Deirdre. And he said, oh my God, that's so boring and it's awful. So he wrote to Tattoo Fixers and said, could he have a colour picture of Deirdre Rashid behind bars? Very iconic picture. So they go with him, and so he's on that as well. And do you know what? That tattoo was actually his downfall, because he during the Ariana Grande concert, in the last 3-4 songs, he had certain songs where that was okay to go to the loo because he didn't like the songs. So he met one of his friends, and on the way back, they went and bought some more wine. And as they were walking back to the music hall, 2 teenage girls stopped him to talk about his Deirdre Barlow tattoo. And he got
oh my God.
Wow. I'll go in. And he said, yeah, I'll join you when I finish talking to my fan club. And then the girls left. Thankfully, the girls went to the toilet, and then the bomb exploded and they were safely in the toilet. Wow. But Martyn was allowed back in because the concert was about to stop and security said, you can't go in because they're all coming out now.
Yeah.
That's how he ended up being in that particular room.
She's got a lot of fans for her, hasn't she, Deirdre Barlow?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
We need a petition to put her back in prison.
Yeah, actually, it was at her funeral, because she died a few years ago, didn't she? So he went to her funeral, but he absolutely adored her. So, yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah, he sounds like quite the character.
He absolutely was. And I had somebody said to me, oh, my sister-in-law met Martyn once on a train coming back from London, and he was drinking Prosecco and invited her as well. And she was just drinking Prosecco with him on the train. And I said, yeah,
that sounds like my type of guy. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much standard, I'd say.
So when all of that happened, because that's just seismic, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you look back now and you think what you've achieved and what you've gone through, can you ever imagine that this would have been what you'd done? Or like, because it must be incredible when you take time out to think, oh my God, I did that.
Had you told me this is what's going to happen to me, I would have laughed, because I was incredibly shy. When I said I used to teach counselling at college, I was running the department but teaching, And running the department was fine because I was sat at my desk.
Yeah.
Teaching was another matter. So I'd walk into a classroom in September with a brand new intake of 30 students and stuff. And I'd open the door and some of the students would already sit, and I'd close the door again, go to the toilet and have a massive panic attack because
Wow.
I didn't do crowds. I do not
Yeah.
do crowds normally. And then I'd walk back in the classroom. By then, all the students would be there, and I'd say, "Hi, I'm Figen Murray. I'm your lecturer for the year. Just ignore my shaky hands and voice and my red face. I've just had a panic attack in the toilet." House.
How to break the ice.
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
helped me then, you know.
Yeah.
So I've gone from, because therapy suited me as a job because I was only working one-to-one with somebody in my basement, and that was great, you know, but
Yeah.
crowds was something else. And then I remember my shortly after Martyn died, my member of parliament before Brexit in Brussels, the European member of, he asked me to go for a coffee. So I met him and his assistant. And he said, "Look, there's a thing about terrorism in Brussels at the European Parliament. I'd like to take you over. Would you speak?" And I heard myself saying, "Yeah." And I thought, "Oh my God, what have I done?" You know, but I
It was
did
probably
go.
lack of sleep.
I did go and I did speak, and that
Awesome.
was okay. And then eventually I started initiating the legislation. And again, so I started an online campaign in the January 2019 after going to a concert in Manchester for the first time ever, a smallish,
Wow.
with only 3,000 seats. And I remember that evening getting ready to go to that concert, and it was the first time we literally went socially back into Manchester after what happened. And it was a Father's Day gift from my children to my husband. He loves Katie Melua, and she's not my
Nice.
Yeah.
so,
she's definitely a specific.
lovely.
Yeah.
It's just when I've heard 2 or 3 of her songs, I've had enough. I don't know what it is. But anyway, so we went in December that year, December 2018, and I remember changing my handbag to my smallest handbag to make the back search easy because I foolishly thought security is going to be top notch, particularly in Manchester. And we walked in, nobody even looked at the tickets, never mind check bags. And that upset me deeply. I felt that too had been forgotten, and it's usual. And then in the January, after researching security at venues, realizing that actually there's a government counterterrorism strategy plan called Contest, and within that it says security at venues is a recommendation. It wasn't a legal requirement, so I thought, absolutely, this is not okay. This is not acceptable. I'm going to have to do something about it. And that's how my campaign started, as an online campaign initially. And then Brendan Cox phoned me during that campaign.
I read about him. He's an amazing person, isn't he?
He absolutely is. And he said, "I've got contacts in Parliament, I'll help you." So he came on board, and then he introduced me to Nick Aldworth, my co-campaigner, who became my co-campaigner. Because he needed to do, before we could speak to any ministers, we needed a white paper, and Nick Aldworth was the person at Scotland Yard who could produce it. After I met him on Valentine's Day that year, but he couldn't do it until he retired because of conflict of interest. So, and that September we started the ball rolling with the proper campaign after the online one finished.
So how did you get up every day and do that? Like,
that was going to be my question.
What propelled you to do that?
Well, I had nothing else to do with my life
fair point.
Therapy. I had lots and lots of clients. I had a really busy practice. It was my income, my business. I all of that day. And I literally, we moved house in the August that year. And since then, I had nothing to do. So the campaign
Right.
was
There was a
kind
gap.
of something to do. And then very quickly, once we started meeting with the Home Office and with the ministers, it suddenly became very busy. And then I started getting a little bit, oh, they are not going to back down. I'm not going to allow them to back down. So I then started saying yes to everything I was invited to speak, and
Wow.
set up a LinkedIn page, a Twitter, and I made sure everything was photographed, put on Twitter, put on LinkedIn. I had heard through the grapevine that the Home Office are keeping an eye on my social media. And I thought, right, I'll show you, I won't go away. In fact, then I met the first security minister, who was at the time Brandon Lewis. I'm saying first because
Yeah, you must have had loads, honestly.
eight security ministers, 5 prime ministers, and 4 home secretaries. But when I first met, the first one was Brandon Lewis, and you never see these people on their own. They always have an entourage.
Yeah.
It was like a big boardroom table, and we were on this side, and they were opposite us. So Brendan Cox, Nick Aldworth, and I were in this meeting, and Brendan said to me at the end of this meeting, it was a 40-minute meeting. So he leaned forward and he said, Figen, this is your meeting. Before we finish, is there a final word you have to say for the minister? And I said, actually, yes, there is. And I looked straight at Brandon Lewis and said to him, well, Minister, as you can see, I'm only a small woman. I'm only 5 foot short. However, I did read somewhere, if you think small is not effective, you have never been in bed with a mosquito. You see, I'm the mosquito. I literally have nothing else to do with my life. I'm going to be working on this, and I ain't
Love
going
it.
anywhere until this is done. I'll be buzzing around yours and the government's head. And they all laughed, but they knew I meant business. And
Yeah, it's
that
good
was,
message. It's really good.
but that was also my realization that I'm going to have to really stay on the
Yeah.
ball.
I can't imagine what that was, because I think, we can all go, oh God, it's great what you've done and it's amazing, but I don't think anyone can really fathom the amount of time, effort, work that you will have had to have put in. Because, and not to sound cynical, but okay, you've had these meetings with these people, and to me, I would be very cynical that it was just lip service that they were giving you, and not, listen, not to say that it was, but I don't think that people can comprehend, you have to be the mosquito, you have to, you can't let this drop, otherwise it wouldn't go anywhere, would it? You wouldn't,
Yeah.
you couldn't just show up to that meeting and go, please can you do something about this, and they'd go, yes, Figen, okay. It does require that absolute relentlessness to it.
Go a step further, I had to make a nuisance of myself, constantly being there, popping up here, popping up there, going to this conference, this meeting, that phone call, that webinar. I was literally, I was everywhere. And that shy person I used to be, that's gone. And now I'm totally the opposite. I don't mind speaking in front of hundreds of people. I don't care. I don't need to prepare myself emotionally. I don't get anxious. I don't get nervous. I just stand and talk about the legislation and how I feel about it and the journey. And it's I have become incredibly sort of focused on it, shall we say. And I did have setbacks, don't get me wrong. The government have not, and that was one of the reasons I had to be so active. The government didn't always, it wasn't always smooth running with them. We had setbacks, and those
And they were
setbacks,
changing every few
yeah,
months.
yeah. Well, this is it. I spoke to 4 different home secretaries. Sorry, 5. Sorry, no, 4. Four different home secretaries. This is how confusing. There's been so many. Liz Truss I never even got to meet, or the minister who was there a month. But even during COVID, I remember having Teams.
Oh God, yeah.
I had Teams calls with Priti Patel. I had a telephone call with Rishi Sunak at home. Thankfully, that was an audio call, not a video call, because it was quite funny. Because because when he phoned, so the day before, number 10 switchboard rang me and said, "Oh, the Prime Minister would like to speak to you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Are you at
Yeah.
home?" And of course, I had a conference to go to, so I had to quickly ring I said, "Of course I'm at home." And then I had to
Yeah.
immediately the conference saying, "Rishi Sunak wants to speak to me. Can I come 2 hours late?" So they had to rearrange the agenda. But anyway, so the following morning, about 3 minutes to 9, the phone goes, and it was the switchboard again. She said, "The next voice you will hear will be the Prime Minister. Are you ready?" And I said, "Yes, I'm ready." And thankfully, as I said, it was only a video call for 20 minutes, not an audio call, because I had a cheesy grin the whole time.
Yeah.
Because this man's voice comes on and he said, "Is this Figen Murray?" And I said, "Yes, it is." "Oh, hiya, it's Rishi here." I was
like
really
old
taken aback.
friends.
Yeah, I was taken aback and I came so close to saying, "Rishi who?"
You should. I
Yeah.
wish you'd have done
Course,
that.
Put
That'd have been
of
so
put
course
him
I
in his
funny.
place.
Yeah, but the imp in me wanted to do that. But of course,
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I was a good girl. But it was so hilarious. But, so I spoke to him and he was very nice, but, and he promised me stuff and then it didn't happen. So,
Yeah.
so many changes, like you said, Karen, so many different ministers and politicians. And then we had COVID. Even during COVID, it carried on, though. I had to email them a few times saying, "Can I have an update on where you're up to with the legislation? I need you to keep me up to date." And they'd ring me and update me. So I'd be constantly on their case.
Yeah.
I had to be really, really persistent, because if I didn't initiate contact, it's highly likely they wouldn't have contacted me and
Yeah.
it would be fizzled
Yeah.
out. So I stayed on the ball and I made sure I increasingly was more and more involved in the industry. And uh, and the setbacks. So what happened with those setbacks was I'd have to go away and lick my wounds because they were hurting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had a few days feeling sorry for myself, thinking, "Gosh, what's it all about?" And like you do, you go
Yeah.
into that dark place. But after a few days, because I always said to my clients, when you go in a dark place, it's important to feel the emotions, but don't get too cozy there.
Yeah.
And thought, I
Yeah.
can't be comfortable. And one morning I'd snap out of it, and that moment was the moment when I'd be twice as determined
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
have the bloody minded notion of, if you think I'm backing down, you have another thing coming. I'm back, and that to me, that was
Yeah.
really important, that I bounced back with even more determination each time.
I
Um,
think that dark place can be a good driver as well, can't it? Because it's like, okay, well, you can sit and you can be in this awful place, and that is fine, and you should do it. I agree. You can't
Mm.
just ignore the emotion, but then it's like, but what's the alternative? And like, so it's. I think sometimes it's a good driver to go, okay, you do feel like this, but do like channel it here if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah, it was it was really weird. So, and then it finally came to the debating in Parliament. So Keir Starmer, when I met him so of course we had the walk, didn't we? So
Yeah.
Rishi Sunak in December 22, he rang me on what would have been Martyn's 35th birthday. And 20 minutes on the phone. And he said to me in that phone call, "Martyn's Law is a no-brainer. It needs to happen. I don't know why it's not done yet. And I promise you, Figen, I will get this. I will rush this through as quickly as I can." And then that was in the December 22. Nothing happened. And then Brendan Cox and I went to one of the face-to-face meetings at the Home Office in the spring that year. And Nick couldn't make that meeting, so there was just two of us. And that meeting didn't go so well. And Brendan outside the Home Office said to me, "What do you reckon?" And I said, "Well, I'm really not happy." I said, "It's like
Mm-hmm.
they're going backwards and this is not, they're being awkward about this." I said, do you know what I feel like doing, Brendan? I feel like doing a protest march from Manchester to London to number 10 with the media in tow and shaming the government into action.
Yeah.
But, and then he laughed. He said, don't be daft. You don't need to do stupid things like that. He said, that's very extreme, isn't it? And then he patted me on the shoulder and said, don't worry, Figen, we'll get this sorted. We will get it sorted. I'll talk to some of the politicians. So, because he was very enmeshed in government of Joe Cox. So thought nothing of it. The following January 24, he rang me immediately after Christmas and New Year, and he said, "Hi, Figen, it's Brendan. Happy New Year. I was just thinking, remember that conversation outside the Home Office you and I had?" I said, "Which one?" "The one where you mentioned walking." And I said, "Yeah, I was wrong. You were right. You need to get practicing. You need to walk." And he said, "What I want you to do is I need you to arrive on the 7th anniversary on 22nd of May. So we need to team together to organize all this. You need to go and practice." So I told my husband immediately, said, "Oh my God, right, we need to practice." And he dragged me out every Saturday and every Sunday in all weather.
Yeah.
And increasingly we walked 2-3 hours initially, and we managed to then build it up. And then 7th of May, we had a whole team then who worked on preparing it and organizing it. 7th of May, I went to the arena, to the exact spot where Martyn died. That's where I wanted to set off. And he was there, the mayor of Manchester. He walked a few 100 meters with us. He's a guy, but at least he turned up and came and
Yeah.
I wondered what you were going to say then. I thought you'd done
but he
more
was
than
really
100 meters.
Yeah, but I respect the guy for actually being there, so
Being present,
totally. And he gave a little speech, which was very nice of him. And we set off from there and walked every single day, 6 to 8 hours a day. We had walked 16 days, no day off in between.
Wow.
And we arrived at number 10 on the anniversary at about 12 o'clock-ish, 11:45, something like that. And we walked in all weather, and I had a dodgy hip to start with, and I was worried whether I can walk or not. So my husband's a doctor, I forgot to mention. He was also the walk doctor looking
Oh,
after.
nice.
So I did about, because I've only got short legs, about 50,000 on average. And sometimes 40,000, depending on how many hours we walked. But sort of the average was 40 to 50,000 steps.
Wow.
And yeah, before you asked, did you lose a lot of weight? I've only lost 1 pound or 2 pound, because in order to have the energy to walk,
Yeah.
I had to have a decent breakfast.
Lots of pizzas.
Yeah, and my husband kept giving us isotonic drinks and sugary drinks and stuff to give me energy to walk. And of course, in the evenings, they all said you need to eat properly. So yeah, all this desire to lose weight during the walk never materialized, I'm afraid. But I did it. However,
I did the moonwalk, sorry to interrupt, and I hadn't realised how much I didn't do what you did, it was just the one, and I hadn't realised how much it really hurts your hips. So for you to have a dodgy hip, I hadn't even I thought it'd be my feet, but my hips, I thought they were going to break.
I know. My feet were okay. My feet were fine. But my hips, so I have osteoarthritis. I had it for 10 years.
Oh my God, must have crippled you.
And my husband, actually, because I walked so much, I was exhausted and I slept very deeply. But he woke me up nearly every day with a glass of water and 2 painkillers.
Yeah.
And he'd say, you need to take these, you're crying again. I was crying because of the pain.
Oh
The
my
last
God.
3 days, it was excruciating. I was
I bet.
I was limping. Somebody put on Twitter, this woman obviously has mobility issues.
I think everyone would have mobility issues.
And I was sort of hovering with the thought, should I ask Brendan to organise me a wheelchair?
Carry you.
Or some crutches? I would have crawled to number 10. I wouldn't have. I was far too determined. Anyway, exactly 6 weeks after the walk, I had to have a hip replacement.
I, can
I
I
would
ask you
do it
something?
again. It was absolutely no regret. I would have done it all over again. Yeah, so determination is really, really important, and not backing down and dealing with the setbacks is really important. Because the temptation is, oh, what's the point? Nobody listens.
I was going to ask you that. Like, we've done a lot of work with people about purpose. Well, first, there's two things I want to ask you, but I'll come back to the second one, which is about identity. Because whilst it's you can see you've changed, it's amazing, and you're not the person you are. It must have changed you fundamentally, and there are things you've probably sacrificed about yourself as a person. But I'll come back to that if you don't mind, because one of the things that I think is really, really important for people, you can't be determined and you can't be resilient and you can't get up and do things unless you have a purpose, like a really driven purpose. So in all of this, like nearly 8 years, however many years it is, what was your purpose? What was the thing that enabled you to be determined, enabled you to walk while your hips were crippling you? What would you say your purpose was?
Oh, about two years ago, before Keir Starmer was elected, I was invited to the Manchester Evening News headquarters because he was there talking and he wanted to meet a few people. So I was invited along. And when it was my turn for him to speak to me just for 5 minutes, I thought, oh, here we go again. How do I explain it in a very quick way what I'm doing? Anyway, the editor came and said, oh, this is Figen Murray. And he said, oh, I know who you are, and I know the work you've been doing. It's incredible, da, da, da. And he said, look, I'm a dad of teenage children. And he said, as a father, I do need to ask you, what motivates you? And I looked and I said, well, having my son's ashes on a bookshelf in my office at home is a good motivator. I don't want anyone else to be in that position. And he just patted my shoulder and walked off. He couldn't speak.
I don't think I can.
No, I was like, oh God.
But that is it. My purpose is that this legislation should be in situ, and it was non-existent. And when you think there are laws about how many toilets there have to be in cinemas, at venues, in restaurants, how many, how hot the food has to be in a canteen, that you can't sell past the sell-by date. All these laws exist. How many fire exits you have to have per person in the venue. Yet there's nothing at this day and age about security. And right now we live in the worst time ever, most dangerous since World War II, and there's no legislation. And although it's been passed as an act of parliament, it doesn't come into effect until 27.
27,
There's a 2-year implementation period. So until in 2 years, nobody is obliged to keep you safe, which I find personally absolutely outrageous.
It's abhorrent.
It is.
The general public don't know, though.
No. I remember going to it's not called the MEN anymore, isn't it? I remember going to the arena in Manchester, and I can't exactly remember it was, but it was after 2017, and they had metal detectors. But similar to what you'd said, I couldn't believe that at the MEN of all places, I walked in and not one person was interested in what was in my bag. And I couldn't believe that. And then we just went again earlier on this year. And it was better than it was. It still wasn't the best in the world, but I at least someone checked my bag. And what was the resistance that you were meeting when it came to
It's money,
right?
It's always money. So when it's really interesting this, because when I first started campaigning on my own, totally on my own, so I set up a Twitter account. Actually, I set that up before Martyn died, but I didn't use it. So I thought I'll use Twitter more. And I set up the petition, and the newspapers latched onto it. And the headlines were, Arena victim's mother wants airport-style security everywhere. And the backlash from those kinds of headlines was then on Twitter, people accused me of frightening the nation and making people bankrupt. So they were arguments. Wind forward. Yeah, that's what I was criticized for. Wind forward 2 years. And because then, when Martyn died, I suddenly when I started thinking a bit clearer after being totally traumatized, I thought, oh my God, I need to know about terrorism. Who are they? What do they want? Why do they do what
Yeah.
they do? Why would someone blow himself up into several pieces and die? What's that about?
Yeah.
And what are
Yeah.
they doing in the first place to stop it? And I had so many questions, and the opportunity came for me to do a master's in counterterrorism. So I did the master's to have my questions answered, and thank God I
Yeah.
did it, because it helped me then later on with the campaign to answer in a
Yeah.
more professional way. But my
Yeah.
dissertation, I thought, okay, you have a chance here to address both of these criticisms. So the criticism about Fortress Britain and scaring the nation, I found loads of research, both in the UK and abroad, that evidences that actually if you tell people what to do and not to do in a terrorist attack, where to hide, what to do with your
Yeah.
phone, um, um, and how to be when a real thing does happen. People who
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
high knowledge, they do exactly what they've learned and
Yeah.
know how to.
It's so interesting you say that.
Isn't it?
Leslie was the safety director when the Olympics were on, and we got to go to the technical um, rehearsal. And I remember her really clearly telling, because she was in not a gold command or whatever, but she told me what to do. And there were things I would never, ever have known. Do you know,
Well, I'm
like
just
where
sitting
to
here
go, where
thinking
not to
now, I
run.
wouldn't have a clue what to do
But
in
this
that
is it.
Oh, it was,
situation.
Yeah.
but to your point, Figen, she made me feel better
But
because I
that
thought,
knowledge
oh,
helped
flipping
you,
it.
didn't it?
Yeah, knowledge really helped. And the other thing I was going to say is, I'm a governor at a local school, and they're always having like what do you call it?
Fire drill.
Practices with the kids about what to do. You know, like
Fire,
in the
they have
event of
fire drills.
terrorism.
Yeah.
But they also have the school. They have to do terrorist watching in case you've got a wild shooter
Good.
and all that madness. But it doesn't scare the kids. So
No, kids
this whole
take it on board. That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the media just like to the media. I'm not going to go on about this today. Are so culpable in so many of these things because
Mm.
knowledge gives you power. But like
Yeah.
Yeah.
headlines
But those
scare
headlines
people.
scare,
They
you know,
scare people.
unfortunately, they scare people. So I addressed that in that research. So,
Good. That's brilliant.
and also when you have knowledge about what to do, people are more likely to follow the instructions of police and security services.
Yeah, spot on.
So, for instance, with police, if you hide somewhere during a terrorist act and the police rams the door open and has a gun at your head, and you say, "Oh, no, 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 I'm not a terrorist, I'm hiding here," they'll say, "Raise your hands." And if you don't, they shoot you because
Hmm.
they assume you're a terrorist because they don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
So, but that training helps you understand if the police says hands up, you do hands up,
yeah. No,
you
I
know,
agree.
because they see you as one of the bad guys. So,
Yeah.
From your research and everything, Figen, if you
yeah,
could like say the next thing, what would be the next sort of three things you would say are like must-haves to better prepare everybody and keep people protected? Because you must
I,
have
yeah.
some
So
like quick wins.
I would say do the ACT training and the SCAN training.
Yeah,
Any adult should do them. It doesn't matter whether they're in a job or not, because you could be out shopping in a shopping center and you could be attacked, and you need to know what to do.
Hmm.
So you could be in a park, look at the Reading stabbings, and you could be
mm,
stabbed by a terrorist. You just don't know what's going to happen, because terrorism can happen anytime, anywhere, any
yeah,
place. So any adult should do the ACT training. It's 45 minutes, let's say an hour's training. The Scan for All staff training is 15 minutes. You just need to watch a video. But again, it prepares you to recognize suspicious behavior, and you just see people from a different viewpoint. And
Hmm.
once you have that knowledge, you don't ever forget it. For
forget,
instance,
yeah.
the SCAN training and the ACT training taught me to watch out anybody taking photos. Like I was at Euston train station yesterday, and there was a young woman who took photos of random trains. She was near a platform at the gates, and that to me was suspicious. So, and I was about to report her when I saw her talk to an employee of the
All right.
train. So I now always, whenever anybody takes photos, I always look at what are they taking a photo of? Are they taking photos of security cameras, exit doors? You don't, do you?
You don't know.
That's my training. That's enabled me to learn that. And if everybody does it, it makes the nation more resilient.
Yeah.
The other thing I did was the money side. So I suggested that big venues who sell tickets add a 50p security levy that will be ring fenced and put back in the annual reports as security expenditure, and that can be ploughed back into security.
Good idea.
And I
Yeah.
give the example of the Manchester Arena that hold nearly 21,000 people. And I know for a fact they run a minimum of 3 events per week throughout the year, all 52 weeks. And I gave the example of, okay, if they only sell half the tickets each night, they run an event 3 nights a week, only 10,000 tickets.
Yeah.
They only do 50, take 2 weeks off, they only do 50 weeks. That, with a 50p extra surcharge, will raise £750,000 every year. Half capacity. So if anybody tells me they can't afford security,
Or you want to bankrupt people.
So then I had some joker on Twitter saying, yeah, but what if the public don't want to pay that? And I said, but don't tell the public, because when
We're
you
already paying a fortune for tickets anyway.
this is it. But when you buy a Coldplay ticket or whoever you go and see, you do not get an itemized breakdown
Of where it's going.
No.
So what does, but then you get people saying, yeah, but we don't sell tickets, but you sell tea and coffee. You have franchises within your organization that sell tea and coffee. Tell them they have to add another 5-10p, and then you get that money. End of the story. Sell programs, add another 50p or 20p to the program.
You could soon make 50p a person, couldn't you?
Yeah. Oh God, easily.
Get creative.
Easily. Yeah, you could easily
generate that money creatively. And with big venues, there's technology now, it's mass screening technology that can screen up to 3,000 people in an hour. And don't even know they're being screened. There is a column on the left, column on the right. You walk over some surface that's covered up with a padded area. And that screens you. And 20, 30 meters further down, there's somebody with a laptop. If you carry any explosives, anything dangerous with you, a knife, a gun,
that's amazing.
bomb, you will light up like a Christmas tree on that screen. And then they put that person out of the queue only. Because now say to me, oh, I've been to that football stadium and there's no security. And I know that particular stadium and I know they have that technology. And I said, actually, you have been screened, don't worry.
Yeah, there is. You just don't know about it.
Yeah. And this is the future of security. There'll be more and more mass screening products in future at big venues.
I think that makes sense as well, because then it's dealing with that element of people not being scared. How can you be scared if you don't even know it's happening? Like if you don't know that it's like.
And if you're not doing anything wrong, you should be like grateful. You should be grateful.
That's why I
am grateful. Like I think I don't care what you do. I've got nothing to hide.
Yeah.
Like so. Nothing. You scan me. You look at my ID. You look at my I'm a little bit controversial on a few sites, but like I've got nothing. So I just think so. My background is coaching psychology, and I always think when someone resists, it's really intriguing to understand why. Because if you've got nothing to hide, and these companies should really care about this, because goodness me, would it impact their reputation, their commercial stuff. And I just think that is a no-brainer of an idea, and it can be done like that. And you just think, that's interesting.
Problem is, I bet you see, as human beings, we don't do change easily. We don't like.
I know.
That's when the law came in. Yeah. We didn't like not smoking in pubs because it's nice to smoke with a pint. But people had to change their minds. And the same will happen with Martyn's Law when the general public. Most people will embrace it because they want to feel safer. However, I can guarantee you will get a cross section of people who will say, oh, that mass screening equipment, will it harm my baby if I'm
Human
pregnant?
rights. Oh,
What about if
Yeah.
that's an infringement into my human rights?
yeah,
And they'll moan like hell about privacy. And why do we have all these cameras? It's privacy. So, but
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion if you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't worry.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
me
I
too.
think
And I
that
am of the opinion that there's no expectation of privacy in a public setting. Like, what do
I
you
think that
mean?
I think it comes back to the core of who you are, which I think is astounding that you're doing this from someone who has seen the really, really awful consequence of not having it. You're not doing it because you're like like a wannabe
You've something to
protester.
gain from it.
You're doing
Yeah.
this because you don't ever want anybody to feel what you and your family feel. So your intention is so pure. You're not after fame, celebrity. I presume that would be the last thing you wanted. So
Oh,
if people don't listen to you, who for your whole life you've got to carry the implications of poor security, haven't you? I just think
absolutely.
it's astounding. I just think
It,
it's mental.
it's it's funny when you said, "Oh, I don't want anything." When I got a letter through, because you get this letter 2, 3 months before you get awarded an OBE or a title like that. I got this letter through in the October, the December thing. And the first thing I did was I Googled how to reject it because I felt so embarrassed. I thought, oh my God, why are they giving me this title? What have I done
Yeah,
to deserve
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
And I quickly found through my research that it's not a good idea to reject it because it's a very long and difficult process to nominate,
Arduous, yeah,
and
yeah,
lots of people have to also nominate you. So I had to accept it, but I feel absolutely, I have so many awards and goodness knows what in my cupboard. In my family laugh at me because it's a whole cupboard full. I feel so embarrassed about receiving any awards because
mm,
I'm thinking I've only done this as a mum,
yeah,
you
Yeah.
yeah.
but
No, I get that.
and I have done it free of charge. I have lost my business that
Yeah,
day he died, and now the legislation is done. I thought, oh well, maybe I should slowly start
yeah,
charging a speaker fee at some
yeah.
events because people make a lot of
Absolutely.
money with
One
me being
hundred
there.
percent.
But you know what? I feel awkward and embarrassed when I ask for being
We'll be
paid.
your agents.
It's
No,
it's
no,
it's weird,
no.
isn't it?
We can't have
I
that.
No, we'll look after you. No, I think for me it's really important for you that your time as doing this as Martyn's mom, I don't mean has passed, but it almost has. Do you know, like this now is about the new you. It's about, and this is about that actually I think you're like a consultant on this. I've learned loads just listening to you for the last hour. So
Yeah.
you're not giving your story anymore. You're actually giving people things to do. So if you can maybe change your mindset about it's not your story anymore, it's your knowledge and expertise. And I think if people don't want to pay you, don't go there. Do you know?
Well, I
Uh,
just feel like because somebody from a police force wanted me to go back and speak. So I have this young PR guy who's helping, and he said to him, well, you need to pay her now. And he
yeah,
said, well, she's always done it free of charge. And I have been up and down the country, honestly, and I have done everything free. All I've ever asked for is pay me my train ticket
yeah,
and have to stay the night, pay for my accommodation,
yeah,
not eating food. I'll pay for my own food because I have to eat anyway. But I just need a bed, a shower, and the train ticket. That's all. So I've
yeah,
never charged. But as I go to some places, it takes me 4 hours by train to
yeah,
travel with two changes, and then I stand there for an hour talking, and then I take the train back, and it's a whole day gone.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I
I think
think
I think
it's
yeah,
bare minimum is what it is. But Karen, you said earlier that you had two question. The second
yeah.
part of the question that you wanted to ask. Can
I think it
you
relates
remember
to
what
this
it was?
conversation actually. So whilst we're talking about you asking for money, it isn't money that I was really interested in. It's about your worth as a person. And the one thing that I was really interested in is that um, this must have, like, I'm not going to use the word hardened because I don't mean it is, but there must have been some impacts on you as a person and your identity that weren't welcome. Do you know, like, that are still there? Like, is there anything that you feel your identity has changed so much because of this that you'll never be the person you were before? And that might be for the good or might be for the bad, which is really bad English, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I am not the person I used to be
Yeah.
at all. And I've hardened.
Yeah, I used the word hardened. I didn't want to do that without your permission
I've
because I don't.
hardened, but
But
not in a bad way, not in a negative way.
okay, good.
Yeah.
I've become more determined. I make decisions much quicker because I've
Yeah,
had to deal with massive decisions. And
Yeah.
now any local sort of day-to-day decisions I'm making an instant. I don't even hover. I take more me time when I
yeah,
get the opportunity because I've been so busy. Even a 10-minute break is I put to good use, and so I've become very appreciative of time and how short it is and how short life is. So yeah, I've changed completely as a person.
do you think throughout it people thought of you as vegan, or do you think they thought of you as Martyn's mom? What did you like? And who are you now? Is, I guess, my sort of
Certainly in the industry,
interest.
I'm Martyn's mum. But
Yeah,
I have stopped introducing. I used to just say, "Oh, hi, I'm Figen Murray. I'm Martyn's mum,"
yeah,
and that's how I was known. But after the debates in the House of Commons and House of Lords, we sat through all the debates. We went to London about 17
excuse me, sorry.
in
Wow.
January and end of March. So we were at every debate. And in the House of Commons, one of the ministers stood up towards the end, the last few days, and said, well, we need to, and I was upstairs watching them, and they knew I was there. He said, well, we need to be careful not to churn out legislation because we feel sorry for victims or bereaved parents. And then in the House of Lords, a baroness stood up and said, well, Figen Murray is a very fierce, and she put an emphasis on the word fierce in not such a nice way, um, fierce campaigner. And but we need to all take a huge step back and not churn out legislation because we feel pressurized by bereaved families and we feel sorry because somebody died. And after that, that was one of those setback moments where I was
Yeah,
upset and cry. I didn't cry, but
Yeah.
off, and I withdrew for a few days completely.
I'm not
Um,
surprised.
and
Yeah,
and after that, I thought, right. So now my PowerPoint, the second slide includes
yeah,
I am Martyn's mum. However, I am also the patron of Oxford. I have an honorary doctorate of the University of Salford. I am a member of the senior leadership team at this place. I'm a member of the da 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 of that place.
yeah. Well,
Got
yeah.
about 8, 9 things that I list now, and
Yeah.
I have a distinction in a master's
No,
in terrorism.
the reason I asked that
Yeah.
was because I follow you on things like Twitter and other ones. The danger is you become consumed as to who that is. Yet at some point during grief, you've got to step into who you are now. You know, and I
I've
think
done
that's,
that now.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's why I think it's amazing to hear, because what is next for you, I guess, is like where's you going to energize your powerhouse now? What do you
I
want to do?
kind yeah, so I'm that grieving person now.
Yeah,
But I'm taking even more in between time. When
yeah,
I'm trying to have more holidays because of the campaign. We couldn't go on holiday often
yeah,
because we know what's going to happen, and I didn't want to take my eye off the ball. So we're trying to have more quality time. But and I'm reinvesting time with my other children, which I have not
yeah.
had to
No,
do.
that's interesting. Yeah.
However, yeah, and really reinvesting in all of that and my health. So I'm doing Pilates now, which I should have done all this time. So I'm doing my self-care. But
Yeah.
having said that, I can't step away from the security industry and sector. I'm keeping an eye on the legislation. And I did say to the minister and the team at the Home Office, I will be watching whilst I'm slowing down. I will be
Yeah.
watching from the sidelines. And if I'm
Yeah.
not happy, I'm going to make my voice
Yeah.
heard. And
Yeah.
again, they laughed and said, we get you. And the security industry is also engaging me. It's still in a lot of conversations.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So it continues at a lower rate, though.
Yeah. I think you have earned that, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
I think that it's an exciting time, and like you say, probably another transition. Like you think about the caterpillar going to the butterfly, and that, like, there's another chance for you to take that time back, reflect, and be who you can be now. And I think that's pretty amazing. And I think that, yes, whilst there's still huge grief there, it's not the overriding driver. I think it's amazing. I think you can direct that energy if you've got a purpose into anything, I think.
Yeah.
So, I think it's awesome, really. Don't you, Elle?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And I think this has been one of the most insightful conversations probably that I've ever had, really, to be honest with you. So thank you for coming on. So for the last question then, which we are throwing on you, it is, if you had a theme song for your life, whether that be for your whole life or whether it's just your life as it is now, what would that song be?
I think it sounds stupid, but Supermarket Flowers from Ed Sheeran.
Oh,
because
don't
it's
say
about
that,
grief.
Figen, I'll
Love that
cry.
song. It's about grief, but it's about fondness for the person who passed away. It's about his grandmother. And I like the way he actually openly talks about, there's a tear every time I blink, and that it's okay to cry when somebody dies, to permission. And that, his dad always encouraged him to be a tough guy, but the tears keep coming. And how his brother put a photo album together of all the memories of a life that's been loved. And it kind of sums up my life with Martyn. I miss him so, so much, but I have nothing but funny memories of him. And it's so that song is really always I'm always feeling very close to Martyn when I listen to that song.
That's
oh my
lovely.
God, that's lovely.
That's really lovely.
I've got
and
a
I
little tear in
can't,
my
and I
eye.
will, and I will be going to watch the Come Dine With Me and Tattoo
Oh,
Fixers
you must do.
episode.
But do me
Yeah,
a
I can't
favor.
wait.
Me a favor, please, if you have not done it, both of you, and please encourage your listeners to go on the Protect UK website and do the 1 hour ACT training and do the Scan for All Staff training. If you can't find the Scan for All Staff training, it's on YouTube. You just type in Scan for All Staff, and it's a 15-minute video with a young woman with a ponytail at a train station, and it's a government training video, obviously, but she pretends to be a terrorist who wants to check out the venue and all the tricks these people use, and you can learn how to watch out for these people. It's really good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, brilliant. We will make sure to include that. No, thank you. Honestly,
No,
thank you for
so
giving
much,
us your time. Yeah, this has been brilliant. And thank you to everyone listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Yeah, see you later. Bye.